Am I listening? Strange, it's me, the Phantom. My God, where the hell are you? I've been waiting for your call for the whole damn month. Yes, I know, I'm sorry. It's just that there are some problems at work. The Internal Investigation Department conducted interrogations and looked for spies. Your activity is significantly stirring up our hornet's nest, but it's probably for the best. Area 51, the leak about John from the farm, the hidden data about Trump on the eve of his election campaign, all this angers the leadership. This means that everything is not in vain. And in more detail, I'm sorry, I can't tell you the details, but I want to wish you a happy birthday, and at the same time to give you a small gift. I think this special case will really interest you. Check your email. I sent you something intriguing from the left email. Okay, I'll take a look. Yeah, I got it. What, a DVR recording? Are you kidding me, Phantom? It's not April Fool's Day, Strange. Take a closer look at the recording, and show it to those who are primarily interested in such things. According to the recording, everything happened on that very damn road to nowhere. You've probably heard of her. In the letter, you will also find the report of our experts with their comments and notes. Go through it? You might need it. The people depicted there had just turned onto this road, and thanks to them, we now know exactly what is happening there and why people disappear without a trace. Sorry, Strange, I don't have much time. Once again, happy birthday to you. Give me the light. We'll call you again in a week. Take care of yourself.
And the man on the other side of the phone line hung up. And you take care of yourself, I said in the silent phone, and turned on the recording. What I saw struck me to the core. Underscore, 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 underscore. How long do we have to go, son? You drive my 250 Ford like that, and we'll never get to your grandma, Stacy. And your sister, by the way, is getting married tomorrow. Yes, I know that you don't like the way I drive. But do you see the way? It's very bumpy. We'll let it rock, and we'll be stuck here for even longer. Do you need it? No need? Well, that's it. And this bandarina? Why do we need a camera? So the feds can eavesdrop on our conversation. Oh, Dad, stop it. Your Cold War paranoia annoys me. This is a DVR, and he's not recording. The memory is overflowing there. Did you hear that? Vindia rehistrator kluche. Yes, I heard it. Don't repeat it to me here. I'm not deaf. A man who sounded about 60 years old answered the young guy. Well, that's great. Listen, Dad, I know you'd like to drive your own Ford, and I would be glad of that. You sit in the passenger seat and sleep all the way. But you said yourself that your eyesight has been failing you lately. And should before you left, you put your glasses somewhere. So please be kind. Don't criticize my driving. You drive more quietly. You'll keep going. The passenger's son, who was about 25 or 27 years old, answered. You're right, Joshua, you're right. It's just that I'm not used to you growing up so quickly, and I'm getting older. Oh, if only Jana were here. She'd be proud of you, son. Yes, Dad. I would be proud. And both of us. After all, 5 years after her death, you and I finally got out somewhere together. And thank God that there are no quarrels so far. In response, there was only a heavy sigh and an equally heavy exhalation. According to the recording, the car was driving slowly, about 30 miles per hour. The sun was going down, so Joshua, the Ford driver, as he put it himself, turned on the low beam headlights. One of the two of them turned on the radio in the car. The song Bad Blood by Radical Face started playing. However, an elderly man turned it off a minute later with the words, tasteless. Joshua just sighed heavily, but didn't say anything. 10 minutes later, a man broke the silence and said, I hope Laura will be happy with this asshole. Pat, what are you doing? Erwin is a normal guy. Personally, I liked him. You always liked all her men, and all of them sooner or later abandoned my girl with a broken heart. Either you're such a shitty brother, or Laura really had a bad streak in her personal relationships. I'm a normal brother, father. Joshua's voice had a steely edge. It's just that I'm always on Laura's side. Yes, some of her men did not always behave correctly towards her. But remember yourself, you also often criticized our mother. And he was also very jealous. Oh, just don't start your hurdy-gurdy, please. I love my wife, and you are well aware of that. And I'm not disputing your love, Dad. Joshua's voice interrupted the sound of the turn signal. The car smoothly turned somewhere to the right and moved on along an unknown road. It's just that you judge people, but you forget about yourself. God will judge me. When I die, then you can judge me all you want. And turn on the gas, Otherwise, we're going 40 miles an hour. There's an empty road here in this godforsaken place. No cops are going to stop us. We'll make it. We'll be in Deming tomorrow morning for my sister and her daughter's wedding. I hope there won't be any of those stupid banana puddings, the old man grumbled. Joshua chuckled, but didn't say anything. The car drove in a straight line for 15 minutes. Before reaching the intersection with the traffic lights missing there was a sign, "Careful down the road, turn left." "After 200 meters, turn right," said a female voice with a hint of artificiality. "Oh, your old lady is alive." "Yeah, I've been silent all this time, and just now I decided to tell you where to go." "Dad, please look, I might even turning off there," Joshua said, and stopped the car at the intersection. There. But you didn't even look at the route. Listen, there was a sign before the intersection, "Careful, cool road," and there's something there. I didn't see it, and your talking phone, or rather the electronic woman in it, said the same thing. What we need, it is to the right. What else do you want from me? I just want you to look at the map on your phone. I don't understand phones. Either you turn right, or are you behind the wheel, without glasses and half blind? How do you like this prospect? It was clear from his voice that the old man was really angry. In response, Joshua sighed resignedly and began to turn right. The car was quiet again. The radio stopped playing before the intersection, and therefore 2 men were sitting in the car who clearly did not want to talk to each other. On the left and right sides of the car, bushes, cacti, and boulders were rushing past. The road itself looked pretty worn and bumpy. There were bumps here and there on which the car bounced a little. A few minutes later, Joshua broke the silence. "Dad, I think we took the wrong turn. As far as I remember, the road to Deming wasn't that completely broken. We're going the right way. As for the road, huge trucks drive here every day. Tractors, I'll even bet, National Guard tanks. That's the whole explanation for what's wrong with the road. But I don't see any of the above. Have you seen the time, my son? It's almost midnight. All self-respecting drivers have been sleeping in motels for a long time. But you and I, 2 half-wits, are going. I want to remind you, dear Marlowe Smith," the young man's voice took on an intonation, as if he were currently reading a news bulletin in a television studio, "that it was you who insisted on a trip without any motels. And the easiest thing for you is, do you want to sleep? So sleep. Are you hungry? There's a bag of fruit, biscuits, and jerky in the back seat." Mr. Marlowe did not respond to his son's remark. Joshua himself didn't seem to want to continue this conversation. But after a minute, he picked up the phone. It was clear from the sounds of his smartphone. Apparently, the guy was not one of those people who constantly keeps his gadget in silent mode. After a minute, the car stopped. After another 10 or so seconds, Joshua cursed and said, "Damn, the navigator took us down the wrong road. According to him, we took a wrong turn. Yes, according to his plan, we will reach another fork in an hour. But the road gets worse and worse with every mile we walk. I don't like it. I'm so sick of you whining all the time. At your age, I crushed crots on a tank in Normandy, in the rains and slush. And there's a road here. You know what? I'm sick of your complaining and snot. What a brat I've raised. I'll go and walk." After these words, Mr. Marlowe could be heard slamming the door loudly. A couple of seconds later, his silhouette was visible in the headlights. He was dressed simply, black trousers, a white shirt, with either a tie or a bow tie tied. In his hand, he held a cane with which he walked on. Joshua stayed in the car and cursed viciously for about 15 minutes. He remembered his father, his bad temper, and his own weakness. Only his mother and sister can calm him down and understand. But not me. I'm always annoying him, just like he annoys me. Well, let him walk through this god-forsaken land. Cool darling, damn it. I wonder if it really said that. Joshua was talking to himself. Sounds were heard exactly on the DVR. It can be concluded that Joshua connected his smartphone to the device. After a few minutes, he said only damn, started the car, and began to pick up speed. The guy raced along the highway and did not stop cursing in a voice full of panic. He soon caught up with his old man. In the video, we can see that he was sitting leaning against a rock on the right side of the road. Joshua immediately left the car and rushed to his father. Unfortunately, the sound range of the video recording device does not reach the distance at which people were at that time. It was obvious from the gestures that the old man had lost consciousness. Joshua tried to shake him, but it was in vain. Then he ran into the car, and with the words, "Fuck my lord," took out a bottle of water from his bag. He left the back door open. The guy threw half of the contents in his father's face, and he seemed to be slowly coming to his senses. A few minutes later, Mr. Marlowe got to his feet. At the same time, he did not even pick up the cane from the ground. Meanwhile, something crawled under the hood of the car. Something long and strange. Is it a snake? Unfortunately, the DVR does not have a night vision mode. It's hard to see, and there are no street lights. At the same time, the father and son were talking about something, but the words are still not heard, unfortunately. Then Joshua got into the driver's seat, and Mr. Marlowe began to walk back to the car. Previously, he looked into the lens of the DVR camera, and here's the strange thing. His face began to look somehow too peaceful. "Well, you scared me, Father," Joshua exclaimed with relief. "I already thought that you had died here from cardiac arrest or something. I'm sorry I scared you, son. I really felt sick somehow, so I sat down by a rock and dozed off. The road is long. Conversations. How you say it in our language. In general, they are heavy. All this is exhausting. But I'm glad you're worried about us. You're worried about me." Mr. Marlowe's tone changed. Joshua just chuckled, not really paying attention to his relative's changes. "Let's go to Deming, Dad. I'm going back to the main track now. We need to get out of here. We accidentally turned onto the Dan Road." "Whatever you say, son. Where you go, we go. I'm with you. You started talking about something. Are you sure you're okay?" That's right. Well, I'll take your word for it." Joshua turned the car around and drove in the opposite direction. But after a few minutes, Marlowe broke the silence. "Tell me, my dear and beloved Joshua, do you believe in aliens?" "I'm surprised you're asking this question, Dad. I do not even know. I believe that we are not alone in this universe. But I also believe that aliens have nothing to do on our planet. Why do they need us? Except as slaves." "You're right about that," Mr. Marlowe replied pointedly. "Well, since I'm right, although it's already strange that you admit it, I'll say the following. I'd rather resist than serve some little green men. Well, or brown. I don't know what they are like there." "You're right," Marlowe replied calmly. "But what if they could use you, son?" "My life is more precious to me," Joshua replied calmly. "Oh, I wish I had banana pudding now." "Yes, Dad." "Yes, I wouldn't mind either. I haven't eaten it for a long time." "And that's right," Joshua said a little nervously. For the next few minutes, father and son drove in silence. But then the strangeness began. The car suddenly stalled and stopped. "That's just not enough." No, not that, damn," swore Joshua and slammed both hands on the steering wheel. "Is something wrong, son?" Mr. Marlowe asked in a calm voice. "The engine has stalled. At the same time, there was still enough fuel to drive at least 200 miles there and back. All the electronics are on, everything is working. But the car won't start. It's crazy. I'm going to see what's in there." "No, you sit there. I'll look in. After all, this is my car." And after saying that, Mr. Marlowe got out of the car. By the sound of the hood opening, Joshua pressed the button in the cabin to open it. Next, the camera lens was blocked by the iron cover of the car, which rose up. A little fuss started in the cabin. It seems Joshua opened the glove compartment and took something out. Then he closed it with a bang. At the same moment, the hood of the car came down and slammed shut. Old man Marlowe tapped on the lid, apparently signaling his son to try to start the car. Second, another, and the third time the engine started. After a while, the old man returned to the car and slammed the front passenger door behind him. "I don't know what you did, Dad, but thanks." The car started up. "The dust is clogged. I just cleaned it up a little bit." "That's good. We can go now." And they set off down the road again. A couple minutes later, Joshua broke the silence. "How did you even see something under the hood in such a dark place?" "There was a light bulb. I turned it on." It's clear." A couple of minutes later, the car stopped. Mr. Marlowe, in the same calm and imperturbable voice, asked, "Joshi, why did we stop?" "Because you're making me nervous. After I found you, you've been acting weird. Everything has changed in you. You walk without a cane, you see in the dark, and you smile strangely, almost blissfully. And your voice. You've never argued with me. Moreover, you called me something you haven't called me since my mother died. And puddings, you ate them with all your heart after the incident when the neighbor's cat pooped in one of them for you. So, who are you then?" "I'm your father. Can you see it?" "Stop fooling around, you bastard." "Oh, the bastard then. Well, let's see how you talk now, son," old Marlowe said calmly. The sound of the car's glove compartment opening was heard again. Joshua chuckled. After a few more seconds, the glove compartment closed. Next, you can hear the click of the pistol being removed from the safety, and the guy's voice. "Isn't that what you're looking for? I moved it while you were digging in the car. You've been giving yourself away from the very beginning, you disgusting creature. Now tell me, where is my father?" "I'm your father." "Give me the gun, son. You are welcome. Otherwise, your father will have to punish you." "Hell no. If you don't want to lose your life, then answer now." From the voice, you can judge that Joshua was nervous and afraid at the same time. Well, perhaps he can be understood. "We have no other choice, son." "To us? To whom?" "To us. You'll find out soon enough. When you become part of the swarm." "I won't." "Thanks you. Whatever your name is, I've already heard my position. We are a swarm. We are squillings. And in a minute, you will be completely ours." "You're wrong. I'll shoot you sooner than what the hell?" No, I won't give in. Enough. Let me go. I won't give up." "No, fucking." The shot rang out. A few minutes later, Mr. Marlowe got out of the car and headed somewhere to the left. He opened the driver's door and by the sounds pulled Joshua down and began to drag him somewhere into the darkness. At the same time, old Marlowe had a snake sitting on his chest. Except he didn't look like our earthly snakes. This one was about the size of a medium-sized snake. 5 minutes had passed, then 10, and a whole hour. But no one ever returned to the car. The recording continued until the car ran out of battery power. That's all. One question remains. Who are the Squillings? Today, I want to share some news with you. More precisely, we will talk about Squillings. A lot of people were interested in them and scared. From all that you and I have learned together from that DVR recording, Squillings are able to take control of their victims, and apparently they can read either all or some part of the memory. This, of course, cannot but frighten. My sources are silent, and not because they don't want to help me, no. The US government is doing everything possible to find these creatures and capture at least one of them. Well, or, as a last resort, just destroy everyone. Phantom, Stephen Grigger, all are silent. And this cannot but be alarming. No, don't think about it. They answer me, but they have nothing to share with me. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. It's not for nothing that I used to be an excellent scout. Methodically devoting an hour or two to this every day, I began to look for at least some grains of possible information. I was well aware that the public was not even aware of the threat hanging over us all. Maybe you don't guess either. Let me explain to you. If these Squillings make their way to the highest levels of government or worse, to the top of the military sector, then the existence of our entire race will be in jeopardy. And I, as one of the main fighters for the truth, whatever it may be, cannot allow this. The first search method I identified was reading newspaper columns that published information about missing people. But this method had a significant disadvantage. I'm alone, but there is a lot of information. Moreover, the human factor cannot be excluded. Here, either everyone fell under the control of the Squillings from among the abducted, or some part fell victim to maniacs and serial killers. This is where I define the use of the second strategy, namely the search for a certain gray area or even an entire region next to that ill-fated road to nowhere. After all, it was there that it became known about these creatures for the first time. To be honest, I don't think the Centauruses or this mysterious Arthur have anything to do with them. Both have their own special goals. Of course, we will definitely find out about them. I will personally make sure that people know the truth about them for sure. Nevertheless, I began to build lines of possible relationships on my special board. I began to highlight the news about missing people whose kidnappers had never contacted the police and relatives with red lines. Then, already in black, I began to highlight the regions where the abductions occurred most often. After a week of such painstaking work, I finally identified a single city around which strange things were happening. It was Carmel. It was in the same state where I live, California. If the information from Wikipedia is correct, then the city is located in Monterey County. The population of the city is only 1,350 souls, and it was near the city that people disappeared in nearby settlements. This, of course, cannot but be alarming. In particular, I was surprised that the local authorities were powerless. In general, they can be understood. The kidnappers did not demand any ransoms. They didn't even call or threaten, as is usually the case. To be honest, I didn't come up with a better idea than to go to this town myself and scout the situation. You'll probably think I'm completely crazy, Maybe that's how it is. But don't get me wrong either. How can I stay away when something happens that I'm more or less familiar with? Specifically, that squillings are gradually and methodically taking control of people. What would you do in my place? Please share your opinion in the comments below the video. I remember it was the beginning of March. It was warm in California, so I took the cash and dressed in a simple way. I also took with me my black .38 caliber revolver, as reliable as a Swiss watch. For some reason, this kind of semi-automatic weapon has always aroused more confidence in me, and I went to the town of Carmel. It is also sometimes called Carmel by the Sea, which means the location in the bay of the same name on the Pacific Ocean. That is, it is such an average small fishing town. It took me a whole day's journey. Several times I had to stop for a nap. My favorite bands were playing on the radio every now and then, from Johnny Cash, with his constant notes of the far Wild West. Before, in fact, cool rock bands like Starset and Too Close to Touch. Listening to them, I tried to convince myself that nothing would happen to me. Although somewhere in the back of my mind I had strong doubts. Am I doing the right thing by putting myself at risk? What am I trying to prove and to whom? Probably it's all because of my long-standing desire to see the aliens firsthand. Maybe even fight some of them. And even though I am already 37 years old, some of my youthful maximalism still remains with me. And where am I now? I'm going to scout the situation in some coastal town with my own hands. They lived, damn it. For all these thoughts, I drove to the city. I stopped to live in one of the local motels, and immediately went to bed, because it was already late around midnight. I put the gun under my pillow, just in case. I was haunted by the feeling that someone was watching me. In the morning, I went out for a walk, and went to some local cafe to have breakfast. The first thing that seemed suspicious to me was that there were almost no people on the street. Although it was a working day, and but at least even the elderly had to go somewhere. The streets were practically empty. But in the Café Manolé, where I finally wandered in, there were 4 other guests besides me. Whether they're local or not, I still don't understand. I ordered myself a portion of pancakes with blackberry jam, coffee with cream, and a couple of toasts with butter. I was served by a very nice waitress named Stacy. It was she who I began to ask first about all the strange things that could be happening. Seizing the moment when she was pouring me coffee, I asked, "Your name is Stacy, right?" "Yes, it is. Is there anything else you want to order? We have a very tasty banana ice cream if you want." "I'll keep it in mind, thank you." "Please tell me, have you noticed anything unusual?" "Unusual? No, I haven't noticed. Unless no one wants to eat our banana ice cream. By the way, it's very tasty. Would you like to?" No, I don't want to order ice cream yet. I'm sorry. It's a pity. It's very tasty here." "Well, if you have no more questions, then I'll go," and she left. I didn't even have time to ask her anything else. Her behavior alarmed me, and I also managed to attract the attention of other visitors. They all looked at me quite hostile. I tried to smile at one of them as kindly as possible, and even raised my white coffee cup, making a gesture that I was inviting him to clink glasses with me. In response, the unknown man also smiled. However, it is somehow too wide. It looked, to be honest, creepy, and I quickly returned to my meal. I still have an image of him in my head, broad-shouldered, with a thick black beard, but a bald head. He was wearing green trousers and a red plaid shirt on top. He looked like a farmer to me. His friends didn't really stand out in their clothes. Plus or minus, they looked the same as this guy. The pancakes, however, turned out to be a little undercooked. I don't know what the reason was. I raised my hand, beckoning Stacy to my table. But before I could say anything to her, she immediately leaned towards me. The plunging neckline of her uniform opened up to my gaze, and I was speechless for a second. The girl, in turn, put her hand on mine and whispered in my ear, "My shift is ending, mister." "To me or to you?" "I'd better come to you, miss," I replied, coming to my senses. "I just live in a hotel, and that's why I'm embarrassed." "Whatever you say, mister. Wait for me here." "And your order is on the house?" The cook gave it to me. "Now I'm giving it to you." And she left. I can't say that I was deprived of female attention, but the whole situation aroused only suspicion in me. Everything was too sugary, and the waitress was suddenly interested in me. And somehow I managed to get her interested, and they paid my bill, even though I only had to pay $10 according to the menu. The 4 people were still sitting at the table. Some of them stared at me intently, and the man who answered my smile with his strange and frightening one, He smiled again in his own way, and all this made me pretty tense. I checked the gun that was in my right jeans pocket. He was there, and it calmed me down a little. After a couple of minutes, I left the cafe and waited for Stacy. I was really curious. Was this all some kind of conspiracy against me, or did this eccentric girl really like me? It took about 3 minutes before she came out. She was still wearing the same cafe uniform. It's strange, but I thought that the workers always change into their usual clothes, I thought then. But he didn't say anything out loud. But Stacy said, "I do not know your name, mister." "Oh yes, I'm sorry. My name is Andrew." I introduced myself with my assumed name. I also had all the documents in that name with me, just in case. "Well, Andrew, it's not far, let's go." I'm burning up with impatience. "By the way, how long are you staying?" "For a couple of days. Be sure to try our banana ice cream." "Absolutely," I said. I'm pretty sick of this mention of ice cream. No, of course, I love him, and different kinds. But this is an imposition. We passed by an alley, and the girl took me into it and pressed me against the wall. I managed to spot a fence at the end of this alley as a possible escape route in case of anything. Stacy took my hands and put them on her chest. Her eyes were very playful, but somehow empty. "I can't stand it. Let's do everything here. Do you like fast or slow?" "Both," I replied warily. Something was wrong, but I kept trying to figure out where to expect a trick. Stacy kissed me on the neck. She ran her hot tongue over it and then bit it lightly with her teeth. I stoically endured, waiting for what would happen next. And this moment has come. She leaned into my ear and said in a low voice, "Let's become one, Andrew." In general, this phrase has a very ambiguous meaning. But in my case, she clearly wanted to subjugate me. At the same moment, I felt something strange and slimy crawling down my right arm. It feels like a snail crawling slowly. It feels pleasantly cold to the body. All my instincts immediately screamed, and I pushed the girl away from me. She hit her back against the brick of the building and went limp. A small gray worm was crawling along my arm. In some ways, even looked like a leech. I immediately hit him with my left hand and he fell down. My right arm was not working properly. It felt like she was numb. I had to reach into my right trouser pocket with my left hand. And when I pulled out my revolver, the worm was trying to hide under a pile of garbage. With a gun in my left hand, although I'm right-handed, I started kicking through old garbage bags with my feet. And when I found this creeping thing, I pointed a gun at it and fired. The creature screamed horribly. It was a low-frequency squeak, but I remember it for the rest of my life, you can be sure. He didn't stop me from shooting the worm again. The squeaking stopped immediately. I went down to the ground and took the casings just in case. I came up with an idea, and I took out my mobile phone and took a picture of this creature. You can see it now on your screens. When I turned around, Stacy was still unconscious. I turned her onto her back with my left hand, not without difficulty because I was curious. Where was the creature that kept the girl under control? And I found her. Squilling sucked on the girl's lower back. I tried to take it off, but it was firmly attached to her. Moreover, when I tried to do this, he started squeaking disgustingly. And Stacy herself screamed in tune with him. A few minutes later, 3 people entered the alley. I didn't like them right away. Every single one of them was armed with bats. Moreover, among them was that bald man from the cafe in a red plaid shirt. He said loudly, "Do you offend girls and even kill our relatives? This is not good, Andrew. Now we will teach you good manners." Well, after that, what's after? I asked in surprise before he could finish. After that, you will become one of us. And the man smiled eerily at the full width of his mouth again. I didn't like that prospect. I turned to the iron fence and slowly began to climb over it to the other side. The sensitivity in my right hand was gradually recovering. As soon as the painful climb was over, I ran to the motel. Fortunately, it was very close. I also had my car keys with me. I confess, dear viewers and subscribers, for the first time in my life, I did not pay for my stay in a motel. But the situation was critical. After all, who knows how many more people were under the control of these creatures. I got into the car and started the engine. He turned around and began to leave the city quickly. The streets were still very empty. No one tried to stop me. There were no cars on the roads either. Pressing the gas pedal, I tried to leave the city of Carmel as soon as possible. And 10 hours later, I got to my house. Lady Luck was on my side because I didn't come across a single patrol car that could stop me. When I entered the house, I immediately closed all the doors. I put the revolver on the bedside table next to it. On one hand, the purpose of the trip was justified, and I personally found new information. On the other hand, I almost died, and I was still shivering. This city, in a good way, needs to be isolated, or maybe even conduct some kind of military operation. But I do not know who I could turn to for this. Dear subscribers and viewers, if you have friends who serve in military structures, please show them this video. I am sure that only by uniting we will be able to cope with this threat. I, in turn, will also not stay away, and will connect all my connections. This rot needs to be cleaned out. Strangers with you, out of touch. And today I want to share with you a piece of my daily information retrieval life. I think you've already noticed that my web of useful data search is very extensive, and you are not far from the truth. Most often you, my subscribers, send your stories. Sometimes people come to me in professions that are more hidden from human eyes, and somewhere, but less often, my acquaintances in the service come to me. The truth is that not everything in this life comes for free, and I just want to tell you about one such case. A month ago, my former colleague called me, and we had a very interesting conversation.
Hello, Strange. I know you're not particularly happy about my call, but I think you might be interested in my information. Oh, Stephen, I haven't heard from you in a while. The last time you asked for about $3,000 for those documents about Trump. I don't even know if I should be happy about your call or not. I think you can be happy. Yes, this time I'm going to need money again for what I'm going to give you. Oh, I don't doubt it. It doesn't happen otherwise, right? That's right. You have to pay for everything in this life. Well, regarding my proposal, I managed to pull out a recording of the interrogation of a person who came into contact with aliens. Are you crazy? I wondered aloud. How did he get out alive? As far as I know, the lunatics don't let anyone go alive. Ha ha ha, what old Strange? Interested, huh? I knew I could intrigue you, and about your question, you're right. They didn't let you go before. But when you watch this tape, you'll think, just like me, they'd better kill him. What did they do to a man there? I thought. And he said the following out loud. How much? 5,000 euros in cash. In our place, today at noon. And not a minute later. And not a minute later.
Stephen said and hung up the phone. You silly asshole, I said finally and pulled this card out of my mobile. And then I broke it in half so that no Secret Service could track my location. At noon of the same day, I arrived at the meeting point. I won't tell you where she is, but I got the recording. Along with it was an explanatory note, which briefly indicated the date of the man who was abducted, and then completely released by the aliens. No one knows why they let him go, even, as it turns out, he himself. The note read as follows. A man of 30 years old, dark-haired, height 1.80 m. The weight is 60 kilograms. His name is Orlando. According to him, he was walking from the Earl's pub bar in the direction of his house, and then I saw a strange object in the sky that glowed turquoise. The object itself flew past Orlando's house. The man reached his home. He opened the door with the keys, and then, according to his own words, lost consciousness. And I found myself in another place. I decided to turn on the recording of the interrogation. The explanation only increased my appetite. But the appearance of the interrogated man almost made me vomit. There was a deep scar on his left eye. The eye itself was not visible. The lobe of his right ear was completely missing. Her hair looked burnt, as if some sloppy child had decided to play with matches. It was obvious from the man's face that despite the treatment with antiseptic agents and ointments, he was in agony from pain. It was noticeable by the way he periodically grimaced and tried to scratch his face, but immediately pulled himself back. Perhaps the scabies gave him an annoying pain. Mr. Orlando, did you see a UFO? What is it? Asked the man behind the camera, who has a gruff, but at the same time endearing voice. Mr. Orlando himself was sitting at a wooden table. He wasn't handcuffed. The bare walls behind, as well as a small lattice window in the upper left corner of the room. None of this hinted at a friendly atmosphere. Something, somewhere, somehow, I'm tired. When can I go home to my wife? At the same time, when you tell me everything, in all the details, the unknown man continued calmly. I will try to help you. And yes, if you suddenly feel sick again, please tell me. I'll call a professional military medic. I don't remember much. I think I was having a drink with friends at Earl's pub. And then, I may have headed home. Yes, you told me that 5 minutes ago. But do you remember who disfigured you? Instead of answering, Orlando asked a counter question. And who are you? I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. I thought this joke would make me laugh. Did you succeed? The voice of the man behind the scenes did not even waver from the mockery. No, it just got worse for me. Damn, it hurts my face. The last time I felt like this was when the man broke off. When what? The interlocutor continued. When I got drunk with my father, and we beat each other up because he insulted my wife. Here, I remember. I was walking home. My wife and I were just planning to celebrate our 10th anniversary. And then, Orlando intertwined his thin and skinny fingers, and he replied in an undertone. You know your questions are starting to help me remember, but I probably wish I was dead. Tell me, can you guarantee the safety of me and my loved ones? You can be sure that the state will protect you. Heh. Orlando grinned. The state, speak up. This is unlikely, but your voice calms me down and makes me feel good. Although I partly understand that this is your job, the man nodded somewhere to the left. You're sitting here, interrogating all sorts of people, aren't you? There was no response. The man leaned back in his chair, and then he said, I was kidnapped. Boo. It was heard that the interrogator leaned forward a little. Aliens. But you won't believe me. Let's believe it. Have you been on their ship? The interrogator asked with interest. I was. And these are not the pavilions that our incredibly beautiful Hollywood invented. This place is much darker. And the aliens are not as cute as they show us on TV. These individuals, they look like us, like humans, but there is a significant difference. And what is it, Mr. Orlando? Their eyes are quite human, except there's a third eye in the forehead, and the in turn is already different. It looks like a black dot. But subconsciously, when I looked at her, at this blackness, I realized that this very blackness was looking back at me. And this is not a fucking metaphor. The man's voice trembled, either from pain or fear. They introduced themselves as Centauruses, Orlando continued. They spoke in pure English, as if they were lords from somewhere in the ancient hinterland of England. Their voices vibrated a little. When I remember, it gives me the creeps. What do they want from you? You're just a hard worker from a cement factory, if I'm not mistaken, the interrogator asked. The sound of pages being flipped was heard on the video. Apparently, this was a personal matter for Mr. Orlando. I also asked myself about it. Why would they need me? And how did they even know where I live? And I even asked them about it. And then, the man grimaced violently. It looked like he was remembering something very traumatic for him. Then they cut off my left earlobe, as punishment for asking questions. You know, I always thought that I would survive any torture. My father used to beat me up a lot when I was a kid, and I got used to being beaten by him. But here, I'm sorry, I don't want to go into details. I'm getting sick. Anyway, if I had my way, I wouldn't talk about it with you. I understand. But we need you to talk to us, Orlando. With me, here now. The lives of many people depend on it. Huh, a lot of people, right? For example, whose? Didn't you guarantee that you would protect everyone? Alas, it is impossible to save everyone. And this is a well-known fact. But we are not talking about philosophy now. In your case, I'm talking about your beloved wife. I think her name is Anna, isn't it? Annetta. Mr. Orlando corrected the interrogator in a sad voice. It wasn't a dream after all, was it? Did they have it? I'm afraid so. At least where the patrol car found you, your spouse wasn't around. Before the interrogator could finish, Orlando slammed his fist on the table. And then he grabbed it with his left hand and winced in pain. Damn, it hurts, bastards. If I could, I would find and cut these bastards myself as they cut me. Annetta. My God, my Annetta. I'm even afraid to think what they might have done to her. And what did they do to you? Try to remember, Orlando. Your memory is the key to saving Annetta. The interrogator began to put more pressure on the person opposite. And this, perhaps, has its effectiveness. Yes, you're right. I'm sorry, my head is splitting when I try to remember. These monsters, that is, the Centauruses, they asked me about my work. About the job? Yes. They're very interested in the structure of concrete, which we use everywhere for our construction. Is there something wrong with them? That's right, that everything is fine. Concrete like concrete. Orlando exclaimed nervously. I'm sorry. I'm worried about my wife. Please find her, I beg you. I love her very much and I don't want those bastards to do anything to her. The interrogator placed a disposable plastic cup in front of Orlando, and then he poured water from a bottle into it. We are doing our best. but more details are needed. What did their ship look like from the inside? I'm sorry, I can't tell you. It was dim and everything was glowing with something green. Something was beeping, apparently some kind of devices, I don't know. I don't understand this. The man started screaming again, and then he grabbed a cup and started drinking. But then he poured the rest of the contents over his face. Apparently, this calmed him down a bit. There was silence in the frame. Mr. Orlando stared into the empty cup for a long time. His lips moved periodically. It was as if he was talking to someone. They cut off my finger for asking him about my spouse. It seems they kidnapped us together. I don't know. Some fragments pop up in my head, but my head starts stirred very much. And the scar. Where did you get it from? The interrogator asked. A scar? Orlando asked and began to feel his face. When his fingers touched the left side and traced the surgically precise incision to the eye, he froze. That's right, the scar. Now it's clear why I can't see with my left eye. It just doesn't exist. Ha ha, ha 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 ha. Orlando began to laugh hysterically. His interlocutor did not react in any way, and he didn't even try to call a doctor to inject some kind of sedative. It took off 5 minutes before Mr. Orlando calmed down. And when he stopped laughing, he continued, I'm sorry. I think I now understand those war veterans who went through hell and flames in their hot spots. Don't worry, it's easy for you to say. You weren't on that ship with me. You didn't see how something iron was injected into your wife's vagina. And it wasn't you who got a scar like mine, thereby losing an eye. Although I had every right to shout and fuck off those bastards who started bullying my wife. And right in front of my eyes. Dear God, I wish they were dead. And you, along with your questions. And I, so as not to remember all these horrors and feel all my current physical and mental pain. Do you hear, all of you? Burn in hell, you bastards. Orlando began to shout. He abruptly got up from his chair, picked it up, and swung at his interlocutor. The interlocutor snatched something out and touched this something to the man's leg. There was a crash, and the man fell to the ground. The object is immobilized. The interrogation is over. We need to find Annetta. Launch all satellites, all tracking systems. Look for her all over the country. Perhaps she is still alive, the interrogator said in the same calm and unwavering voice, and turned off the recording. As you can see, dear viewers of my channel, it's not that simple. First, the mysterious puddle from Area 51. Then the squillings. Now there are some Centauruses. I'm sorry to take off your rose-colored glasses, but I still believe that people should know the truth. It's been a few days since I showed you the video of the interrogation of one of the abductees, and I don't hide it. The question, where is Annetta, has been bothering me all this time. I think that you are also very interested in finding the answer, and I decided to share with you what I found. But I have a request. Remove children and pregnant women from the screens, because what I reveal to you may shock you a second time. So it was Sunday, the 18th of February. After breakfast, I came up with the idea of who I could turn to for possible answers. I haven't heard from the Phantom for a long time. I should at least call him, find out how he is. I thought, dialing his phone number. We have known each other for a long time. We can say that we have been at school, except that we parted ways when school ended. I enrolled at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and my friend, whom even then I jokingly call Phantom, because of his nickname in the game room, joined the Army. Now he has reached the rank where he can express his concerns about a particular issue to the U.S. Secretary of Defense himself. In general, a busy man, and at the same time, he is very risky when he contacts me. So this time, when I decided to call him, I had doubts. Is it worth disturbing him at all? On the other hand, I'm really curious about where he is and how.
Hello, Phantom. What? Strange. Haven't seen you for a long time, or rather haven't heard from you, old man. How is it? It's okay, I'm glad to hear from you. In my kitchen hustle, you know? Oh, I know. My superiors here are making changes in our team. They even called exterminators to exterminate the vile cockroaches. I see. I hope their poison won't harm your health. Don't worry, you can't take me like that. That's why I'm a Phantom, my friend. It seems to be, but it doesn't seem to be. Ha ha ha. His sincere laugh rang out. I missed him so much. How did you celebrate your birthday? Great. We managed to make some delicious pizzas. Oh, what'd you call it? The first one was named by me Trump, in honor of the previous president. And the second one is expensive, because I accidentally added a lot of jalapenos to it, and when you eat it, it feels like a little more, and you will lose consciousness. It's like being hypnotized by someone. Ooh, I wouldn't try it. And why are you calling today? Did you miss me, or do you have any ideas on how to create a new pizza? Both.
I grinned. I always liked the way we played this game with him, and no one could suspect anything. Never. This idea came to us when we were children, to encrypt. But then none of us even realized that such a thing could be useful in our future.
I was recently given a pizza recipe, but can't find its author, or rather his wife, yet. Maybe you can help me. I'll send you the recipe. The initials of all the participants are there. Okay, I'll take a look. I'll dial you up after a while, come on. Come on, fan, before the bell rings. And he hung up.
While I was waiting for the call, I was still trying to find at least a bit of information about Annetta. What's wrong with her? How is she? Is she dead or alive? And if she's alive, what happened to her? She could be the key to creating a new archive about these mysterious, but as I understood it, very cruel centauruses. I'm not chasing a lot of fame. After all, my true goal is to find the truth, whatever it may be. I'm haunted by the belief that this could save our species somewhere in the future. For all my thoughts, I did not notice how time flew by and evening came. There was a phone in the rocking chair in front of me. I hypnotized him, waiting for the call. And finally the ringtone of the song Sweet Dreams, performed by Marilyn Manson, rang out.
Am I listening? Hello, did you order pepperoni pizza for a married couple? Yes, I am.
How soon should I expect her? I immediately realized that this was not an easy order in my name.
Our courier will arrive in 10 minutes. Tipping him or not is your right. You've already paid our little pizzeria handsomely. All the best to you. And you.
I finished the call. 10 minutes later, there was a knock on my door. I opened 2 doors and a courier appeared in front of me. He looked to be 18 years old, and on his head, he wore the trademark green cap of the pizzeria Franco's Pizza. "Your order," he said, and handed me a cardboard box. "Thank you," I replied, and handed over $20. The guy nodded and went back to his scooter. I closed the door and went to my kitchen. I couldn't wait to see what was in the box. When I opened the box, I saw that in addition to the pizza, there was a flash drive in the box. It was a little stained with cheese, but that's okay. The flash drive itself was in a case. Immediately, not for a second, I went to my office and closed all the curtains. And then I connected this tiny USB drive to my laptop, put on my headphones, and started clicking with the mouse. There were several files in the new extra hot pepperoni folder. All of them were called quite succinctly: Record 1, Record 2, Record 3. I decided to start with the first one anyway and turned it on. The recording was videotaped. In the frame there was a certain hospital bed on which a girl of unprecedented beauty lay. She was half naked. Only her breasts, neck, beautiful collarbones, and such delicate shoulders were visible in the frame, not to mention the beautiful face. After looking at the unknown, I continued watching the recording, and after a couple of seconds, a voiceover appeared. And the same one as on the interrogation tape that I recently bought from Steven. Unbelievable. The object is Zero, Annetta. She was abducted by aliens calling themselves centauruses. There are no visible beatings on the body. The girl was found in the middle of a clean cornfield near the house. By clean, I mean completely burned out, but there are no burns on the survivor. An initial blood test showed that no life-threatening chemicals were found in the body, except for a protein unknown to us, but we haven't figured out its meaning yet. We put the girl in a coma to make sure that her life was not in danger, and when we get it out, we'll start our next stage of recognition. Who knows, maybe she is the key to our understanding of these creatures, and the way to deal with them. That's all for now. The end of the first archive entry for Sector 51. And damn, the recording lasted only 5 minutes, and there were no fewer questions, so I didn't hesitate, and decided to include the next one, number 2. The same room was in the frame. However, this time the girl was conscious. I really hope it was Annetta. Soon my suspicions were confirmed by the same mysterious voiceover. "Do you remember your name?" The girl nodded, and she answered, "I think my name is Annetta. Where am I?" "In a specialized hospital for the care of special patients." "That is, in a psychiatric hospital?" "No, not at all. But I want to point out that you have a sense of humor. I learned from my husband. I just don't remember his name." "Orlando." Yes, exactly. Thanks, and where is he? In next room. Don't worry, you'll see each other soon. In the meantime, rest. Only the girl wanted to object, but a nurse came up to her from nowhere and injected something into her left forearm with a syringe. Annetta immediately went limp and seemed to fall asleep. The man who had been in the shadows all this time put the camera on a table or maybe a chair. And for the first time ever, I saw him. Only this time, just from the back. He was tall, with short black hair. He had a thin build and not very tall. Offhand 1.70. Object 0. She is Annetta. Does not show any signs of aggression. Instead, she is very calm and friendly. And this is good news. The end of the second archive recording for Sector 51, the same man said, and without turning to the camera, turned it off with his right hand. Well, at least it's definitely Annetta. So, all the answers to the questions are in the third part of the recording, I thought then, and clicked on the third video. It turned out to have the same lamp, the same white walls and a lattice window, which, however, this time was already in the upper right corner and not in the left. Annetta was sitting at the table. She was wearing a hospital gown and a warm blanket over it. After a while, the interrogator, who is also the mysterious owner of the voiceover, began first. So, Annetta, we found you in the middle of a scorched cornfield not far from home. Do you remember how you got there? Annetta was silent. Her gaze was directed anywhere but the camera, and not the person she was talking to. After a couple of minutes, she still honored the agent in front of her and replied, I wish I hadn't remembered, and it would be better if it were all a dream. Pleasant, a little scary, but still a dream. Why could he be pleasant to you? As far as I understand, you and your husband were abducted by the Centauruses. That's right. Although the word kidnapped is not quite right. Rather, they invited me, and I gave my consent. However, I did not take into account that my husband would return earlier. Why did you agree to accept the invitation? These are aliens. They could have done anything to you. Haha, oh yes, they could. And they did. God never comes so many times, Annetta said with a lascivious grin. What? For the first time in a long time, the interrogator seemed genuinely surprised. I was coming. Well, I've had orgasms. Even my husband stopped satisfying me in bed a long time ago, and these Centauruses. For the first time in my life, I was happy to be in someone's power. There was silence. It lasted for several minutes before Annetta herself broke it. You know, it's very hard to live with a man who has not only narcissistic tendencies, but also hidden sadism. Our sex with him has always been varied, extravagant, but I didn't enjoy it, only pain. Many of my friends, of course, boasted about their success in BDSM and bondage practices. But even from the pain, I still haven't learned how to enjoy myself, at least from his own. Speaking of which, where is my sadistic husband? Annetta asked with a contemptuous grin. He is undergoing rehabilitation. Your well-wishers have crippled him very badly. Oh, I don't doubt it. I was the one who asked them to do the maximum harm to him. And they even let me watch how they tortured him, how they cut his skin, his fingers. You probably think I'm crazy, but I was really sincerely glad to see how my deeply disrespected husband was suffering. Why didn't you divorce him? Where should I go? We live in such a wilderness, and no one believed me that this man, a simple guy from the factory, so friendly, could harm his own wife, which, according to his own words, he loves dearly. The girl fell silent and turned away, and then she put her hand on her neck and ran her finger from the jugular to the hollow of her chest. She smiled at something and continued with undisguised gloating. I especially enjoyed watching my husband scream in frustration when some kind of alien device entered my vagina. I like this toy the most, you should know. And to heighten the effect, they injected me with some kind of substance that only relaxed my body. I still feel like I've been reborn. So, they tortured you after all, right? The man asked his leading question. Very sweet. They searched all my erogenous zones, and they were skillfully played on them, as if a very skilled violinist were playing his music on his favorite violin. Somewhere in my mind I understood, of course, that they were studying me, and that their benevolence is probably due to much more ulterior motives. But please understand me. For the first time in 15 years, I experienced orgasm after orgasm. I've never felt so good before. Moreover, I received moral satisfaction only from the realization that my husband would remember everything that happened to him for a long time. By the way, do you think he remembered? He remembered? Right. Are you happy? Very much? Ah. Annetta said, almost jumping up in her chair. And she clapped her hands, still laughing. "Did they ask you something?" the voiceover asked. His tone was very patient and calm. "Yes," the girl answered the question, starting to calm down. "How to make me feel good?" They didn't touch me themselves. More precisely, they did it much more subtly. My very wounded husband has probably already told you that the Centauruses look like us humans. And to be honest, I still didn't understand if there were any females among them. But I can definitely say that by looking into their extra eyes on their foreheads, some kind of telepathic connection was established there. I don't know how to explain this to you, but they caressed me, mentally and physically. They drew an image in my head, fulfilling all my secret sexual fantasies. For example, I have long dreamed that something would enter me very gently and slowly, at the same time, so that it is combined with stroking my neck and my cheeks. And they created this image for me. In my head, I was caressed and loved by my old classmate, my school sweetheart. And when I closed my eyes, I felt it all. You can't imagine how blissful I was then. Annetta dreamily recalled everything that had happened to her. There was silence. It seemed that every person in the room was thinking about something different. Finally, the interrogator broke the silence. "Would you like to return to their ship? If they promise me that they will take care of me and fulfill my sexual desires, then yes. It's better to be there than with my husband. Anyway, I really hope that he will not recover from his injuries for a long time. If he suddenly asks about me, then tell him everything as it is. Let him suffer more. And what are you going to do next? I want to go home to my parents. And I secretly pray that my benefactors will invite me back to their place." That's it. For the first time in a long time, the voiceover chuckled. "Well, we'll see in the meantime. Please come with my colleague. He will take you to the dining room. It's lunchtime right now." "Okay. Thank you for your hospitality." Annetta nodded and got up from the table. There was the sound of door opening. Annetta went somewhere to the left and did not appear in the frame anymore. After a minute, the voiceover said, "And yet, everything is not as it seems at first glance. Well-wishers or murderers, allies or enemies? We still have to find out, sir."
You're right, Agent Executioner. Continue your work. A voice suddenly rang out from the speakers in the room.
"As you command, sir," and the recording was turned off. I closed the laptop lid. I looked at my wristwatch and was surprised. It was already 3 o'clock in the morning the next day. I've been sitting for a long time, I thought myself. And after that, I got up from the table and went to the bedroom. Yeah, the Centauruses. Well, wow. And this Annetta. Poor woman. How many more are released? And how many others have been invited? What complicated world we live in. Isn't that right?